This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 343. Kryssa Marie Bowman on near-life experiences.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Have you ever had that experience where you suddenly look around and realize life can never go back to the way that it was before? This is one of the big themes inside of my conversation this week on the program with Kryssa Marie Bowman as we talk about how the experience of coming from a story that I'll let you hear for yourself inside of this conversation, but the opportunity where a chance encounter with hypnosis dramatically changed everything in a short amount of time. And then, of course, from there was no question, there was no doubt why she then became fascinated to go off and learn as much as she could and to keep that journey moving onward, learning from different voices, learning from different approaches, and really helps to foster different communities online, helping other people to learn exactly how they can help others too. So listen carefully inside of this conversation because you're going to hear how sometimes we come into this profession with a goal to address something, to, dare I say, fix something of our own, but then it opens up another opportunity to become that person who can help others. Also, you're going to hear a beautiful conversation, which I would caution you, some of you may inappropriately check out when you hear metaphysical themes or even the topic of past life regression or even life between lives, but you're going to hear an application of just gorgeous, artfully vague communication where the client is then invited to access a place in which they can then create the change for themselves. As Karen Hand would say, we don't have to be the wizard in the hypnotic process. We can instead be that guide, that GPS that brings the client to a place where they can make the change happen for themselves. So listen through this conversation for some enlightening stories about personal transformation, the definition of exactly what it means, not just near-death experience, but instead near-life experiences of how we can challenge ourselves to achieve incredible things and how some of the greatest lessons of personal transformation can actually come from video games. So be sure to check out the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com. This is episode number 343. If you just go to worksmarthypnosis.com/343, easy to remember, that'll bring you to the resources where you can find the websites that she hosts as well as the online communities that she runs and just even see how to greet and say hello and move from there. I'd encourage you also to check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. This is the all-access pass to my hypnosis business training library, a program that Kryssa Marie references inside of this conversation. And plus, there's more than 1,000 members worldwide where it's not just a library of what's working right now to build a thriving business. It's also a thriving community that's there to support you and help you to grow even stronger in the time ahead. You can check that out at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And by the way, be sure to look at the bottom of the page because there's a little thing that's floating there that gives you an opportunity to see even more inside of the program even before you join. That's again at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And with that, let's jump directly into this phenomenal conversation. Here we go with episode number 343, Kryssa Marie Bowman on near-life experiences.
Well, so I went into psychology academically, and I'd also been a patient for a couple of decades. And I had a specific thing that I was working through or trying to work through that just wasn't really getting better through traditional talk therapy. And I found a hypnotherapist who was able to not completely eliminate it, but get me to the point where I was functional and I was aware of what was going on. And I was able to then move through it much more rapidly. And I think it was like 3 sessions. Something that in 13 years of dealing with this one particular issue, which I'm not afraid to say, it was agoraphobia, I wasn't really making any headway. And then in 3 sessions, hypnosis sessions, I was out and about again.
Yeah, and what was the thought process? Just to kind of go into that for a moment, what was the thought process to reach out to a hypnotist on that?
You know, it was one of those things where this might sound a little esoteric, and I do tend to sort of believe in these sorts of things, but I was really at my wit's end, and I was like, I am so ready for this to be over. There's something deeper going on. I'm not able to get there just through talk-based therapy. I felt like talk therapy was sort of working from the outside in.
Hmm.
And as soon as I sort of asked that question of myself, I started noticing advertisements for hypnotherapy just popping up randomly, and like suddenly my reticular activating system
Yeah.
was like noticing that, and I went, oh, maybe that is a more effective way of doing this, because that seems like an inside out instead of an outside in,
Yeah.
way of changing. And yeah, it was absolutely everything that I had hoped for, and I was ready. I was so ready, and I was not a great client. I will have to just state that up front.
How so?
I Well, I did not go into trance easily. I also had, like a lot of my clients now, a very specific idea of what trance was that was based kind of on Looney Tunes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I had this idea that I was going to be completely out of it. I was going to be unconscious. I wasn't going to know what was going on. And so I felt like, well, man, I really failed at that after the first session. But then I started noticing that I was getting better.
Yeah.
And so I went, huh, maybe I didn't fail at it. So then
Well,
I did another
let's talk about
session.
let's pause there for a second because you
Yeah.
said I started to notice I was getting better. We all would throw around the quotes, the definitions that we've heard, the classic Dave Ellman, bypassing critical faculty of the conscious mind. And these are things that people often repeat by way of, tradition. What was that moment of that aha of going, oh, this is doing something?
Oh, well, for me, because the issue I was dealing with was agoraphobia, it was actually being able to like go somewhere without having a debilitating panic attack.
Yeah. Nice.
And I had to make sort of negotiations with myself. I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm just going to go out for 20 minutes. I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm only going to be like 2 miles away from home. I can handle that. And as long as I made these negotiations with myself, I was able to do it. But that was something I wasn't able to do prior to that hypnosis session.
Yeah.
And and at first I was like, was it the hypnosis session? My clients do this too. Was it maybe it was just me. Maybe it was all me. And so I thought, well, I failed at the hypnosis session because I didn't go into a trance. So therefore it must have just been me. Like I was
Mhm.
ready. And here's the funny thing is that it was, yes, it was all of the above. It was, yes, I was ready. Yes, it was all me, but yes, it was due to the hypnosis session.
Yeah. So you're sharing the rest of the story of moving through multiple appointments. What can you
Three.
recall of
Yeah.
going through? Yeah. What was it that you recall most of going through that experience? Let's say the
So the
user side of it.
first session, I have this, I don't know if you want to call it my critical faculty or just my inner rebel. I have this very alive and active rebellious teenage girl that's like, you don't know me, don't tell me
Yeah.
what to do. So when the hypnotist, Marvin Backer
You are
is his
now
name.
wonderfully relaxed. The hell I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything he tried to tell me, my little 16-year-old rebellious self was saying, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So as he was trying to, I shouldn't say trying to, as he successfully induced me, but I did not realize
There you go.
successfully induced. I kept saying to myself, like, I'm not in a trance. This isn't working. This is stupid. This is bullshit. I really want this to work though. Please let it work. Please let it work. I was like making these like ongoing sort of negotiations with myself. Like, just let it
Yeah.
in. Let it in. Even if even if you're not doing what he wants you to do, just let it in, Krista. You have to get past this. You have a life to live. And yeah, so I left that session just feeling like, wow, I suck at this.
Mhm.
And then the changes started happening. And he wasn't, you know, he's old school. So he wasn't one of those ones that was talking about the reticular activating system or make sure that you look for the change or anything like that. It was just like, okay, you're done now and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
And I left just feeling really dejected. And I didn't know that I was supposed to be looking for the changes. But lo and behold, agoraphobia is one of those things that it's either on or it's off. Right.
Yeah.
So I was able to see the changes. And I wasn't altogether sure if I should attribute it to the hypnosis or not, but they were happening. So I just was like, okay, well, here's the only thing that's changed that's different. And now I'm experiencing what I wanted. And so whether or not I think that session helped, I'm going to go back because I
Yeah.
would like to continue getting better. And I was sort of looking at it like maybe it's a placebo effect, and that's okay. That's okay.
Well, we tend to bounce around this conversation. So let's kind of go to the end goal at the moment here. let's say that here you are, you're now working with a client of yours, and you can trace it back to some of the questions you had going through the experience, some of the gaps that could have been filled in. That, for example, I teach in my pre-talk, you might feel a heaviness of relaxation. You might feel a light and floating sensation. You might just feel like you're sitting in a chair. Even the simplest thing, that it's okay to tell our client, if you ever have an itch, go ahead. It helps you to go deeper into this experience. Are there things that you've now brought to your work to try to, let's say, inoculate against some of the,
Oh,
possible
absolutely.
pitfalls
Yeah.
that you found in that?
And I definitely ascribe more to the Ericksonian approach. I am, I don't say you are this, you are
Yes.
that, which is what he did, which is
Yeah.
what brought that inner rebel online, right? So I
Mhm.
don't do that at all. And I actually had a client just yesterday. It was funny you should say this, because he was in a trance, and he started talking about what he was visualizing, and then all of a sudden his eyes popped open and he goes, "This isn't working." And I was like, "That's okay. You can keep your eyes open if you want, but you might just enjoy this relaxation. So go ahead and close them back down. It's okay. You're safe. You're in good hands. I've done this 100 times or more." And he's like, "Okay, okay, but I don't think it's working." I was like, "That's fine. And you know what? You don't have to go into a trance at all." And then I just continued to put him into a trance.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, there was no doubt that he was in a trance by the time I brought him back out again, because then he was just sort of shaking his head and looking at me and going, "Wow, I done been hypnotized." And I said, yes you have, sir."
So then let's go back inside of the story then. Let's say that now you've got someone who's well, from your journey, you had this change as a result of the process that
Hmm.
surprised even you. What was that thought process to then go, this is something I want to learn, this is something I want to do?
Well, 3 decades of psychotherapy, 13 of them specifically focused on agoraphobia, were not getting me anywhere to the degree that just one single hypnosis session did.
Hmm.
And so I was like, wow, if it can do this for me with this issue that I've been working on for so long, I want to be able to do this. And lo and behold, I actually already had a degree in psychology. And the reason why I did that was because I was trying to figure myself out. I was like, okay, well, I will just go into psychology, and maybe then I can figure out what's going on with my brain and, fix myself, quote unquote. Not realizing that what I needed was just to heal, not fix. But that was it. It was just like, wow, this can do what in 1 to 3 sessions, maybe a little more for some people, but like, what essentially was probably 600 sessions of
Hmm.
psychotherapy. So yeah, I wanted to be able to give that to people. So that
Yeah.
was my thought process, was why keep this to myself?
So then walk us through some of that journey. Where did you start to look? What did you start to do in terms of gathering this knowledge?
How far back do you want me to go?
Let's see. We have another half an hour now.
Okay. Well,
Oh.
so I spent the first 8.5 years of my life on two different new age sort of hippie communes,
Mhm.
where there was just a whole lot of new agey stuff. It was spiritual, but non-religious. The first one was the Edgar Casey
Yeah.
Foundation in Virginia Beach, and then the
Yep.
second one was the United Research Light Foundation in Asheville, North Carolina.
You know,
And
I was
so by the
actually
time
from Virginia Beach originally.
I did not know that. What a
Yeah,
small
and I
world.
only I only figured out that was there after I left the area.
Oh wow! So this for me was the early '70s.
Here was the ex-girlfriend from high school that it was from their front yard. I'm like, "What's that big place over there?" And, if I knew, I would have gone and hung out some.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of memories from it, but I remember my best friend, and I remember we lived on this little court that was near the area. It was sort of like there were several bungalows, and everybody that lived in these little bungalows were all part of the community, but it wasn't a commune in the sense of like self-sufficient, sort of commune. It was just a group of people that decided that they all wanted to sort of live near each other because they all had this one single thing in common.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then my mother and I moved off of the one in Asheville, and I cycled into public school, and that was a crazy change after having lived on, pretty like open new age hippie commune. So I hit my teenage years, the rebellious years, and I wanted nothing to do with new agey stuff, with alternative health. Our family practitioner up to that point had been a naturopath, and I was just like, nope, 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 hardcore science all the way. I want nothing to do with this like flaky hoodoo guru stuff. And then I had a near death experience when I was 18, and that changed everything. And that's why I also decided to later go into psychology. There were a few things that led up to going into psychology as a degree, but that was one of them, because none of the spiritual stuff that I'd been exposed to really resonated with the experience that I had in my near death experience. So fast forward all the years later, trying to recover from agoraphobia, which came out of a really abusive marriage, my second marriage. And that's when it started. And so I was like, okay, well, all these years of talk therapy aren't working. Maybe I need to revisit my roots. Maybe I need to like look at alternative therapies again. Maybe I need to sort of just go ahead and open my mind up again. It doesn't have to be hardcore science. Although many would say that psychology is a pseudoscience. So anyway, I think it was that moment when, as soon as I was just like, let's open back up and see what else is out there. Stop being so closed-minded about this just because of your, upbringing. That's when I started noticing all the different signs sort of leading me towards hypnosis. The first thing that I did after seeing the doctor that I saw, and he was actually a psychotherapist who was certified in hypnosis, but more the old school hypnosis, like you are getting sleepy, you are, whatever, was rapid transformational therapy through Marissa Peer. And that was really interesting. And I paid a lot of money and I got certified through it. Beautiful program, but a lot of holes still. I felt like this works for many people, but not everyone. And then I discovered Mike Mandel, and I was like, okay, so let's delve into this. And all of the missing components were filled in. And so I became certified in that. And then I stumbled upon David Snyder and some NLP type things. And my education has just continued to just blossom from there. I never stop learning. There's no point at which I'm like, oh, I know enough. I'm done now.
Yeah,
But I also don't know
that
what I don't know. So like when people
right.
say, well, what else are you looking for? I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'll let you know when I find it, And then I found you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Tell me if you found this to be a factor, though. And this is something that I often talk about, that, as we're new to it, we had a moment in one of the recent online trainings for learning hypnosis where there's a segment at the beginning where I break down every technique that fits into the same cause and effect relationship of language. That as you follow that feeling, it brings you back to the first time you felt that way. At its core, yes, that's part of regression, but it's still a cause and effect relationship. And every technique falls into that. And we had someone who said that in the first half hour, you single-handedly ruined every other training I had been through, but also enhanced every other training, because he goes, I stopped putting every method up on a pedestal. That it wasn't that this is the one magic technique that fixes everything. I could look at the technique and go, oh, that's how it works. And now it gave him a greater license to then customize. And the reality becomes, the deeper we get into our trainings, and he was able to go back and look at all these advanced strategies he had put up on a pedestal and go, oh, now I can customize it better. Now I can even invent my own techniques. What I'm getting at is that the deeper into this we get, we don't necessarily need every training to be revolutionary. We'd like them to be, but sometimes it just comes down to one way to make this transition a little bit smoother than you had before.
Yeah.
One way to deal with this little hiccup in the process, kind of like what you had brought up as to the guy going, I don't think this is working, yet clearly you're seeing every sign you want to see. Is there a story that comes to mind of just picking up what some in this audience could hear as just the tiniest of a nuance, but it paid off a huge difference in terms of the results you saw with your clients?
Yeah, but we're going to go back into a little bit more of an esoteric territory. You ready for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So hypnosis, hypnotherapy is all about communicating directly with the subconscious or the unconscious, right? What really changed things for me was looking at it from the point of view, and this was partially due to Mike Mandel, but looking at it from the point of view that the client already has everything within them to heal themselves. And I'm just the facilitator helping them communicate with the part that has this knowledge. That if I take me out of the equation, take my ego out of the equation, having the skills to facilitate, yes, that's key, right? But I'm not healing them.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything other than being the facilitator, the conduit for this. So here's where it gets esoteric. I had a session probably about a year ago with a woman who slipped into a past life. And at first I was like, okay, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But this was real for her. And so therefore it's real. And I just went with it. And it actually had this amazingly transformative effect on her. And so I just kept my mind open, like, okay, I'm just going to set this over here and be like, maybe. And plus, I had those early years, growing up on the hippie communes, quote unquote, where people did believe in that. But I had like turned my back on all that for a while.
Yeah.
So I just like sort of set it over here and I was like, okay, well, there's that. That was an anomaly. We'll just, keep it over there. Let's not try to analyze it too much. It worked for her and that's what matters. And then it happened again, and then again, and then again. And so I started intentionally calling forth my clients' highest consciousness to help heal their subconscious. And that was the game changer for me right there.
Yeah.
All I am doing is basically being the interpreter and the facilitator for this. And the way that I looked at it, to sort of use a metaphor that I use with my clients frequently, is a video game. So your subconscious would be the terrain. Your subconscious would be what you think is life, but that's actually the territory, right? The map. And then you have the character that's in the game going through all of these hardships and all of these winnings and all of the, whatever that character is going through in that territory. And then you have the player, and I see the player as actually the soul. I used to think the player was the conscious mind, but now I think the player is the soul. And the highest consciousness is when you get those upgrades, those downloads that are like, oh, now you get to level up to a whole new terrain. Oh, look, a different map. Oh, let's open up the treasure chest, and now you have these gifts that you can use, to make the experience better. And the more I started thinking about this metaphor, I was like, that really fits too, because when these clients of mine have gone into these past life and in between life experiences, they're able to see themselves from a much sort of higher perspective, like an umbrella looking over the whole of their life, right? And then seeing that the other players are doing the same thing. So even players that they've had trauma with, if you're able to talk to them from that sort of highest consciousness point of view, or even the player as opposed to the character point of view, like everybody takes off their suits of armor that are part of the game and just like sits around the coffee table and says, hey, that was a really fun game. Yeah, it was. Hey, you did really good. Like, thanks so much for killing me. That was a great job. you know.
Metaphor, everybody,
Yeah,
metaphor.
yeah. Exactly. That's what metaphorically.
Yes.
You played your character really, really well, but being able to look at it from that perspective was just incredibly healing. And so now when I have these, I don't do it with everybody. I sort of have to just intuitively feel out like who's ready for it. But I'll just say like, hey, as I'm doing the induction, I'll mention something along the lines of, bringing in their highest consciousness to hold the GPS,
Hmm.
while their subconscious is the map, is the
Yeah.
actual terrain that we're exploring, right?
What's beautiful about that is that it's artfully vague, it's ambiguous on purpose, and it's opening up that interpretation, because I can imagine you've said this and it didn't go that direction.
Right.
It still ended, it still moved somewhere important, somewhere meaningful. There's a story that comes to mind that people would often press me in a training. It's like, well, what's your opinion on past life? Is it real? Is it not real? And I go, we can't prove any statement in either direction. So let's just stick with fascination for right now. It's not the
Exactly.
kind of work that I tend to focus on. But here's a moment where I'm doing, and here come the air quotes, here comes a session, this had to have been 2011 or 12, where I'm doing the quote standard regress to cause model. And suddenly, by the answers I'm getting in the daytime or nighttime, all that stuff, she's not somewhere that was anytime recent,
Hmm.
to say it simply. And we find a suitable event to clean up, go into that experience, let yourself receive whatever other wisdom or knowledge is necessary, bring that up into this moment, and now tell yourself. So I'm doing, modern informing basically. Into the session, it's worth pointing out she is a chaplain for the Navy.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and her question was, did you bring me there or did I bring you there? And I
Interesting.
explain
Mm,
the same thing we would say in any training, that's like, well, it's all about asking open-ended questions.
right.
She had a similar sense of humor that I have, one that I know you and I share, to go, well, the way that I teach this is to say, you can either think of yourself as a good detective or just play dumb. I never make any assumptions. It's never who's there and what are they doing to you. Oh, who's there? What's happening now?
Right.
And now what
What are you
happens? It's all
experiencing? What are you feeling?
yeah,
What are you hearing? What are you
it's
seeing?
all
Yeah.
open-ended questions. So I go, so based on your question, I think you brought me there rather than me bringing you there. And she just kind of sits back and she goes, well, that changes a few things now, doesn't it? And wraps up politely, and every bit of the issue was then resolved. Which the beauty of this becomes the same way that you took this piece of advice, which has origins back to, the phrase that some people in our profession would even take offense to, that you're born with all the resources you need in order to make this change. And I've heard people actually get up and speak against that, to say
Hmm.
that, well, they weren't born knowing how to walk. It's like, well, yeah, but they were born with the ability to
With the
learn.
resources, the ability to, yeah.
Yeah, the
And the
ability
fact that
to,
they didn't just fall down and go, well, that's it. Walking's not for me, clearly.
yeah.
Let the other babies walk, not
Yeah,
this
this
one,
fad
you
of
know?
walking just isn't going to catch on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, but that opportunity that you took, that I've told a similar metaphor over time as to the game is, if you go back to the podcast episode, which is the keynote at Hypnothoughts in 2017, it's the game of how long can I talk about Super Mario Brothers without you realizing I'm talking about Super Mario Brothers? Um, we're testing new things, we're trying new things, and only once do I then drop the statement. And that's when our hero of the story discovered a note that read, I'm sorry, the princess is in another castle. Some people start to smirk.
Mm.
But this journey of learning in terms of where we've gone, and the reality is, and I want to hear your opinion on this as someone who does make use of, we'll put the category of regression, we'll leave it at that. How important is it to you what the event was versus how they utilize what the event meant to them?
I don't see it as an either or, Jason.
Yeah.
I
Chat
don't. I
about
see it
what
as,
do you mean by that?
um, so I leave it open-ended like you do. And by doing that, some people absolutely need to understand why, how, where, when, and other people not so much. Some people benefit from how, where, why, when, and other people not so much. But even when I'm doing the regress to cause, which is, not every session, I make sure that the only reason we're even touching upon that is so that we can go back and reframe it.
Hmm.
But the bulk of the session is to help them come away with the resources and the tools to integrate that into their present life and moving forward. So it's all well and great to be able to understand where something came from, why, and figure out like, oh yeah, I was 3 years old and this happened or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily change anything.
Yeah. I think right there is, where so much of the conflict and even controversy lies, that, it's not ever. I heard someone one time say, well, if you ran over a pothole with your car, going back in time and filling the pothole in isn't going to fix the alignment of the car. To which I go, let me use your same metaphor to now disagree with you. Because we're going to leave the pothole exactly as it was, because what we really need to change is the reaction to the pothole.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
story of how, because this happens now becomes another response.
Right. And so the subconscious mind is like, it's there to protect us, right? It's there to keep us alive. It's not necessarily there to make us happy. So if it has this pothole memory, it's going to be like, okay, be aware of potholes. Potholes are everywhere. They could happen at any time. Be wary of potholes. And then I feel like our highest consciousness is the one saying, well, yeah, they are everywhere. So just be aware of them so you can resourcefully deal with them. And then acknowledge the fact that every pothole you've ever encountered, you've actually survived.
Hmm. Yeah. You just said something that I don't want to skip over, which was that I don't use this technique with everybody. And that's enlightening, having, come from specific schools of thought that would say, do this with everybody. This is the most important style of work. How do you make that decision in terms of what to use and what not to use?
Oh, in the intake, I use a lot of NLP to sort of feel people out and, listening to their responses and sort of allowing my ears to prick up whenever there's, something where it's a possibility they might have some sort of existential crisis if we go into something like the highest consciousness. But they're open to the possibility of understanding the subconscious because we can at least explain that over, several decades now of research, even though we can't point to it and say, here's the subconscious mind. But we do, in fact, know that it exists. We just, can't like point to it and say, this is it. Here's where it lives. But we have evidence to support that it's there. And so people can do that. Not everybody's open to the possibility of extending that same margin of, possibility to a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And so I just listen for that. I just listen for that. And then when I do a regress to cause, and it doesn't even have to be to cause, quote unquote, like it can
Yeah.
just be kind of like what you were saying, like to any situation that brings up this same emotion, this same belief system, the same, thing that's currently limiting you, that's currently causing or wreaking havoc or, whatever. And there might be like 50 different experiences in your life that we could explore that all would point to this. So it doesn't have to be the origin, except in certain cases, maybe phobias. Yeah. But if somebody is a trauma victim, we don't have to go back into the deepest, darkest, most painful, traumatic part of their lives in order to initiate change within them. But that is a great place to bring their highest consciousness in and do it content free at that point.
You responded to a little while ago online, and we'll talk about the community you run online if you want to chat about that too here in a bit.
Sure.
But it was episode, I'm cheating, I have it in front of me, episode number 333 in this series where I just completely, taught something I call success trigger, regress to success, a method of doing regression based off of a positive experience. And you kind of chimed in going, oh yeah, I've been doing that too for a while, which
Yeah.
I never once claimed it was original. In fact, I think I said in that episode, I got the idea from this from reading a Roy Hunter book. So it's a common idea, just that was my application. While we're on this topic of, different uses of regression, how is it you would use that off of a positive experience?
Oh, I use that so frequently. In fact, I use it almost every session these days because
Yeah.
during this crazy pandemic, a lot of people have sort of forgotten how to reconnect with their sense of joy. And we have it. We all have it. And so I'll use a regress to a happy, joyous occasion, a situation where they felt connected, they felt bonded, they felt loved, they felt loving, that they felt proud of themselves, that they felt successful, whatever is needed, in order to sort of initiate that change work. But to take them back to that, whether it was a week ago, 20 years ago, or when they're just born. I've had people that go back to like just being born and coming into the world and feeling this sense of like, oh, yeah, okay, this is different, but there's a lot of love here. I don't have to be afraid. There's people here to care for me. I
Yeah.
feel their love. And just letting them really reconnect with that sense and then say, look, we're not having to teach you anything new. You're just reclaiming this ability. It's been there all along.
Yeah.
You're just reclaiming it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Is there a specific thing you tend to prefer to work with the most these days?
I've tried to do the niching.
Yeah.
I suck at it. I was told early on, you have to niche down. And so I was like, okay, well, I used to have an eating disorder and I've recovered. So I'll do that. And I've had a lot of success with that, with all different types of eating disorders. But, other people would come to me with other issues and I would get equally as involved with that. And I think part of my success is that I bona fide am ADHD, like absolutely. And so I hyper focus and obsessively focus on things that interest me, but there's never just one thing. It's like multiple things and I'll go bam, 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 bam. And so like niching down to just one thing. So these days, I seem to be mostly interested in helping people heal from hidden abuse, like
Yeah.
narcissistic abuse, and not always it doesn't necessarily mean that there's somebody that's a bona fide narcissist with NPD, but has narcissistic tendencies that have been abusive, and helping them understand why is that person that way, and how you can separate yourself from it and how you can heal from it and how you need to just basically give yourself back, like reclaim all the things that were taken from you in that relationship or in that situation. And then I still do a lot of work with eating disorders. I'm finding more and more that I'm attracting a more spiritual crowd.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, there are people that I don't advertise that I do past life regressions at all because Not everybody can. I mean, not everybody is either able or capable, or I don't know how that works on the other side from, this human existence. But there are some people that either they're just not ready, or they don't believe, or it would just not be in their best interest, not be in their highest good to explore a past life. They're just not, that's not good for them right now. And that's fine. But I do seem to be getting a lot of people that are looking for past life regression.
Well, while we're on this theme, what's working best for you right now in terms of being found by clients and then having them actually work with you?
I was afraid you were going to ask me this question. If I were to try and advise somebody on how to become a successful hypnotist or hypnotherapist, you're probably the person I would refer them to, as
Oh,
far
thank
as
you.
like the marketing part and the business side, because a lot of your stuff is coming super handy. But I also feel like, for whatever reason, I've just sort of gotten lucky. Like there's like I've stumbled blindly into what works in some ways, like locally, as well as on a more global scale. And then word of mouth is huge. But what you've helped me with is just really defining things. Like, recently in your group, we're talking about how I'm booked out by a couple of months, and you're like, well, maybe you should consider having your phone calls have a deposit towards the session, a refundable deposit. I was like, oh, huh. Well, why not? This is a good time to try that out, and I don't get a whole lot of people that want to waste my time, that are just like, looky loos, but I do get a few. Out of every week, I would say I probably have two or three,
Hmm.
and that's 20 to 30 minutes times those two or three that I could be spending with people who are definitely ready and at threshold and want to change
Well,
and
I
want to
think
do
that,
this.
yeah, I think that calls it, which thank you for bringing that up. I tend to say that, there's not one set answer for everybody. It kind of depends on where you are in the shape of things. And as much as you shared what you just shared, there is a business model. And I always go back to the classic Steve Martin quote that so much of it does just come around to become so good they can't ignore you. And along the way, though, if we have some tricks and strategies and things that just have been proven to work to get there even faster, a combo of the two tends to be
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
But by putting out your message, by putting out what you do, and you lean heavily on community. Do you want to chat a bit about the online community that you run?
I have two. Actually, I have
Yeah,
one that is Hypnotherapy Uncensored, that is specifically for people in our field. And then I have another one that is Eliminate Self-Limiting Beliefs.
nice.
And that is for pretty much anybody, but it's primarily populated by current and former clients, as well as, other change workers. And I don't even look at it as marketing, Jason. Like,
Right.
I have a genuine, sincere, like, enjoyment of connecting with these people and like sharing, like, oh, I bet they would love this. Like, let me share this thing, and it's not for the purpose of like, oh, maybe I can make some money if I do this, or let me figure out what is the best time of day to post this thing. Like, I never look at that. Maybe I should. I don't know. But I'm also sort of just growing organically, because I have to be honest with you, things happened really quickly. um,
Yeah.
I went from, basically being like poverty level, raising four kids, to suddenly having like all this money and being kind of afraid. Like, oh no, what do I do now with all this money? And I had to like work through some financial blocks that I had to receive it. Then I finally was like, okay, I'm receiving money. That's great. But then I still was like, it's scary to hold on to it. I better give it away quickly. you know? Let me give some to my kids. Let me go donate to this person. Let me go help this person. And I'm honestly still sort of working through that. But I don't want to grow too big too fast. And I feel like that's a possibility. I know that sounds a little arrogant, and I don't mean it out of arrogance, but I feel like if I were really to like put my nose into it and focus on marketing in order to create something bigger, I would.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite ready yet psychologically for that.
There's just the beautiful thing about, this is the right that we all have. We can build the kind of business that we want. We can
Right.
work with the certain issues that we wish to work on. We can work the hours that we wish to work. We can make the decision to go, you know what, I'm going to block off these 3 days and just sit around and watch Netflix those days. We have
Yes.
that right. We
Yes.
have that responsibility.
Everybody does,
Yeah.
not
And,
just us.
but to have that, we do more than others, it turns out, but to have that ability to say, let me kind of check in where I am. And it's why I do this consistently in my calendar. I'll block off a series of days, and just that's the moment to kind of go, okay, what's working right now? What's really working as opposed to what emotionally I think is working. And let's take a step back and go, you know what? This is back to the niche. Your house sounds like mine. I heard the cat.
Yeah.
The opportunity where I was going to say squirrel, but it was cat.
Nope, it was a cat.
But the opportunity where, we can make that decision. I took some of the tabs off of the website of mine because I went, you know what? I'm really good at working with this issue, but it's not what gets me excited these days.
Yes, yes. And that's happening with me too, with some things like I'm not so much interested in weight loss anymore. People come to me with eating disorders. That's exciting because I know I can help them. But people are coming to me because they just want to lose 10 pounds, that last 10 pounds, because they want to look good at the gym or whatever. I'm just not interested, you know? And there are plenty of other hypnotherapists, hypnotists that are totally willing to fill that niche. So that's just not where my passion is.
Will you be able to share those links to the group to me by Messenger, and we'll put those in the show notes here for this episode?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And while we're on that theme, where can people best track you down? How can they best get in contact with you?
Google is probably the easiest way. I have two different websites, which I know sounds a little weird. I'm struggling with whether or not I should keep both or condense them. But
I bought 14 this week, so you're good.
yeah, so I have one that's more for the global community, and that goes by my name, which is KryssaMarieBowman.com. And Kryssa spelled Kryssa. And then the other one, which is more for my local small community. I actually live in a pretty small community. ChrysalisCounseling.us, spelled like chrysalis, the caterpillar turning into a butterfly, chrysalis. So those are the two best ways to find me, but on Facebook as well as TikTok and Instagram, where I am Kryssa, Kryssa _ Lys, Lys.
Excellent. We'll put links to everything in the show notes over at
Perfect.
worksmarthypnosis.com. It's been awesome having you on here. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for what you've been doing in those communities as well. And what you said is really the intention of so much of it. When we do things without the intention of drawing a straight monetary line from the action, from the content to someone then paying us, that's where some of that happens even faster. To put that focus, that intention on
Absolutely.
educating and
Oh my
informing and
gosh.
fostering community. People can smell hunger, people can smell fear. But instead, when someone connects with the heart that someone has, and you've definitely demonstrated that wonderfully inside of the groups that you run,
Thank you.
any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
Just something that recently came to me I'd like to share, and that
Yeah.
is the difference between striving for something that you want that's going to improve your life versus striving to avoid something that you don't want. This has been demonstrated to me many times throughout my life, but also recently it's like just really sort of like hitting me over the head like a small, cheap concrete block with many of my clients where they're lonely, so therefore they want a relationship, not because they feel like their heart is overflowing with love that they want to share with somebody, but because they're terrified of being alone, or that they are tired of living in poverty, so they want wealth, but it's coming out of a place of lack, coming out of a place of fear, versus just saying, yes, I'm worthy of this. Yes, I believe that I am capable of this, that I can have this and it's okay, striving for what you want, which doesn't mean just sitting back and going, yes, I am manifesting this by doing absolutely nothing other than just pretending or believing. Like you have to put the effort in, right? Because the effort is like the action is what follows to sort of prove to yourself, like, yeah, okay, you're serious about this. Let's do it. But coming from a place of lack or of fear versus going towards a place of enrichment and personal evolution. And even though sometimes the end result might look similar, because maybe it's that husband or that wife that you've always wanted, but the difference is that one is one that you actually sought for and you realized that you were ready and you had healthy outlook, healthy boundaries, et cetera. And the other one is somebody that you settled for, somebody that were like, please don't leave me, please, I just can't be alone anymore. And then you start sacrificing who you are in the process. So anyway, there is something to be said for like the impetus, the motivation coming from a place of lack versus going towards a place of abundance or prosperity or however you want to call it.
Jason Linett here once again, and thank you, as always, for leaving your reviews for this program online, sharing it in your ongoing conversations to help elevate this entire profession, and yes, indeed, interacting with these really cool people we have on here as guests. Check out the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com/343. That'll bring you over to this near-life experience episode with Kryssa Marie Bowman to check out the communities that she runs, to reach out and say hello as well. And while you're there too, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. As we like to say, guessing sucks. Here's what's actually working to build a thriving business that creates impact in people's lives and simplifies the day-to-day running of what we do. You heard one of Kryssa Marie's stories in terms of using it to streamline the running of her business and only now spend her time communicating with people who are primed for the exact service that she provides. So check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Look toward the bottom of the page because there's something floating there which gives you an opportunity to check it out and learn even more before you dive into the program. We'll see you inside at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.